Hi, my name is David Rothschild with EatiQuette. We usually present at this conference, but we're not available this year. So I'd like to share some of my top dining etiquette tips.
Punctuality.
If the invitation says 7 o'clock, get there at 7 o'clock. 7:10 the latest. If you arrive early, you're actually putting a little extra pressure on your host or hostess who may not be ready with their preparation. So get there on time. Some of you might have heard the expression fashionably late, maybe out in La La Land in LA. But in the real world, late is late. And it's rude. Get there on time.
Hors d'oeuvres.
Hors d'oeuvres are small portions of finger food, generally served on a tray by a server. There are two options here. You may accept or say no thank you. You're always within your rights to ask what's being served, but once you've been told, then you can't respond with something like, "Oh, that sounds nasty." Okay, here's how we do it. You take one or two and place them onto your napkin, not 5 or 6.
Buffets.
I'm always asked, are there really rules for a buffet? Yes, there are. This is called the chafing dish. Keeps food hot. Always use the utensil that's been provided for you. Take a plate. Help yourself. Help yourself. Help yourself. The primary rule of a buffet is to never walk away from a buffet table with a plate that looks like this. Don't overload your plate because you can always go back. Now let's say you want to go back for a second plate. You can't use this one. You need a fresh plate because your germs are on this plate and you don't want to contaminate the food. Fresh plate. Help yourself. Now this is a tough one. I know it's tough because it's tough on me. No nibbling while you're going through the buffet line. And you've all seen little guys do this. They take a vegetable stick, they put it in a ranch dressing, they take a bite, they put it back in the ranch. There's no double dipping.
Napkins.
Place your napkin in your lap as soon as you sit down. In your lap. Don't wear it like a bib. Okay? And guys, don't tuck it in because you're going to end up going to the restroom like this and it's really embarrassing. We all know what to do with a napkin. We had a bite of something. We had a drink of something. And by the way, it's napkin to lips, not lips to napkin. I don't know why I find that funny. What are some things we don't do with our napkin? We don't blow our nose in our napkin. That would have to be some emergency for that to be acceptable. And another thing we don't do with our napkin, ladies, we don't do this with our napkin. Another thing we don't do with our napkin is at the end of the meal, we don't put this napkin in a plate that's still full of sauce. What do you do with your napkin when you have to excuse yourself to go to the restroom? Most of the etiquette books say you place it in your chair. Well, I got a real problem with that because my butt was in that chair. And knowing this restaurant, there's been a lot of butts in that chair. So I say just kind of fold it up and place it to the left of your setting, just like that.
Place settings.
As part of a formal setting, there's often a plate. This plate's called a show plate. It's for show. We don't eat directly from it. The first several courses will be served atop this plate. This little plate here, this is your bread and butter plate. It's either above your forks or to the left of your forks. Silverware is placed in the order of its usage. Nothing is placed out to fool you. If there's no soup as part of your menu, there's no soup spoon. So you eat your way from the outside to the inside. Forks. This is a salad fork. This is a dinner fork. Salad fork a little wider, a little shorter than the dinner fork. This little guy, this is your cocktail fork, meant to get food out of a shellfish. Soup spoon, dinner knife, and this over here, this is your dessert service. Most of us are right-handed, So glassware is placed to the right of the guest. So this cluster of glasses is mine. This cluster of glasses here is not.
Helpful tips.
All right, this is a good little tip, might help you out. Excuse me while I turn my back to you. Everybody do this, please. Straighten out your fingers. You'll notice on your left hand, you'll see lowercase b. On your right hand, lowercase d. B for bread, D for drinks. Now when you sit down, you know where you are. There's your bread, there's your drinks. Don't do it here though, because everybody's going to see what you're doing. Do it there.
Bread and butter.
Helping yourself to bread and butter. They're usually served communally. Help yourself to a roll or piece of bread. Bread is meant to be broken, so you break off one piece. Help yourself to butter. One pat, two pats, but don't butter the whole thing, okay? Break off one piece, butter it, you're good.
Soup.
You've just been served your soup. Don't start. Wait for everyone at the table to have something in front of them before you start to eat. I have an 1895 etiquette book that says, like a ship that goes out to sea, I spoon my soup away from me. This is the absolute proper way to eat soup. You spoon away from yourself, 2/3 full, you lean in, side of the spoon into your mouth. When you get to the bottom, you tilt away from yourself to get that last bit of soup. Most Americans eat toward themselves, perfectly acceptable. 2/3 full, side of the spoon into your mouth. When you get down to the bottom, tilt toward yourself to get that last bit of soup. Either way you decide to do this, you want to avoid these kinds of sounds. And I know I don't have to tell this group we don't do this. I know Mom said to blow on your soup. Don't blow on your soup to cool it. Wait for it to be cool enough for you to eat. You may stir it, okay? And when you're finished, don't take this spoon or any utensil that's been used and place it down onto the tablecloth, okay? Leave it right here.
Seasonings.
This is one of my pet peeves. Seasoning your food before you taste it. This says to your host, your hostess, I've eaten here before. I know this food has no flavor. It's really rude. Taste it, and then if you decide you want to add seasoning, do that then, but don't make a production over it. I had a gentleman recruiter from a major corporation come to me after the workshop and say to me, when I'm interviewing over lunch and the candidate seasons his food before tasting it, that's one strike against that candidate. And I said, why? And he said, because that indicates to me that that person makes decisions without having all of the facts.
Using the knife and fork.
This is how we hold our silverware, just like this. Index fingers giving the pressure. If you've been given a piece of chicken breast, don't cut up the whole thing at once. It's one bite at a time. Americans tend to eat in what's called the zigzag method. Tines down, cut, switch hands, and eat with tines up. Europeans eat differently. They eat this way, tines down, cut, eat. Seems like a really good idea until you try to put your vegetables on top here. Really tough to do if you don't have the practice. There's a story in World War II how American spies were found out in German restaurants because they were doing this. Germans don't switch hands.
More helpful tips.
Hold your fork like a pencil, not like a baseball bat, okay? This is like a horror movie. Don't be gesturing with your silverware. And it's even worse with a knife. That's considered really rude. Do use your knife, however, as a pusher to get things onto your fork. Don't use your bread, okay, and don't use your fingers. Don't do this chipmunk cheek thing. One bite at a time. Don't be saving up for winter. And don't lick your fingers. When you're finished, Just put your fork and your knife to the right of your plate like this. Says you're finished.
Table conversation.
Always try to keep the conversation at the table positive. Try to avoid subjects that give you agita, heartburn. Subjects like politics, religion, sex and drugs. Always good subjects to stay away from. Cell phones and texting. Keep your cell phones off of the table. If you have to take a phone call, go ahead and take it away from the table. There's never texting at the dinner table. I call this love the one you're with. You may never be at this same restaurant with the same group of people. Enjoy them. Those people in cyberspace, they'll be there tomorrow. And always say please and thank you to your servers. It's a sign of good breeding. And make sure you say good night to your host and your hostess. I really believe that good table manners are one of the great equalizers. You can sit at the same table with anyone. They can be rich, they can be famous. You don't have to be either one of those. But now that you know the basic rules, you can be comfortable. I hope you enjoy your camp this week.